Hey guys, this is John. I'm playing lafou in the 15-minute pool on ICC. He opens with e4, and let's play d5. We'll play a Scandi. Even though we've played the Scandi plenty in faster time controls, I haven't played it a whole lot recently in 15-minute games. So let's try to change that. I'll play the queen d8 line. And I'm going to check on my opponent right now. So they've only played 10 15-minute games. They have 6 wins, 3 losses, 1 draw. All right, and they play a line that I've seen plenty of recently. A6, and they immediately play A4. Okay. I think black usually does pretty well out of this line, because you do get to play knight C6, and you have access to the B4 square. Knight F3. Yeah, bishop F5 is probably what I'll do. I think bishop G4 could be played as well. I should think about that for a second, because bishop G4 is also pretty tempting. On bishop G4, you often have to watch the tactic involving bishop takes F7 check, but here that does not apply. And on bishop G4, I'm threatening bishop takes F3 followed by knight takes D4. So there is something to be said for that move. Probably on bishop G4, he'll play bishop E3. And then taking on F3, queen takes, knight takes D4 looks more dangerous, because he can take, and then B7 is also loose. So probably I should play bishop F5 all the same. I think I will. Now, assuming that white castles, okay, on castles I was going to play knight B4. On this move, I think I'll also play knight B4. Yeah, let's go and attack that pawn on C2. Or maybe E6 first. Because knight B4, there is knight E5. Which is kind of cute. Because if knight takes C2, queen takes C2, bishop takes C2, there's taking on F7 checkmate. Yeah, I think I can play E6 first. I think this is fine. Just stopping the bishop. My knight will still get into B4 anyways. So no need to rush. Plays H3. A little defensive. Maybe he has in mind knight H4, trying to hunt down the light square bishop. Okay, let's do this move. Attack C2. And if rook C1 or bishop B3, I might play H6, just so if knight H4, I can always play bishop H7 and save the bishop. It's also possible simply to develop, like bishop E7. Okay, he plays bishop B3. Actually, let's play H6. I want to keep this bishop. I'm not too worried about knight E5. Wow, he's going to go for G4. Aggressive. And played right away, too. So probably bishop H7. If bishop G6, knight E5 would have come with tempo, attacking the bishop, so I think better to tuck the bishop on H7. White's already burning their bridges to an extent, because by playing G4, they're less likely to castle kingside. So knight E5, maybe bishop D6 against this one, and just attack that knight. If bishop D6, queen F3, we can play bishop takes C2. That's an important tactical detail. So yeah, let's do that. He might play F4 to try to prop up this knight. Instead, queen to E2. So it looks like white is preparing castling queenside. That would be my guess. So if I castle short, are they going to flat out attack me? Because that's what it's looking like. I could take on E5 right now if I wanted. Bishop takes E5, D takes E5, knight D7, something like that. But I'm ceding a lot of space. Knight D5 is another option. Knight FD5, that is. I don't think I should castle short, now that I look at the position. Because if I castle short, I think g5 is a good reply. H takes g5, bishop takes g5, and I have a few issues there. I could try to arrange castling queenside, like play queen e7 and castle long. But I feel like there's something better. Maybe something more disruptive I can do to white. I mentioned knight fd5. I'm thinking about that move. Knight fd5, knight takes d5. Let's say knight takes d5. Bishop takes d5, e takes d5. His queen is on the same file as my king, though. So maybe there's even like bishop takes h6 shots in that case. I have to be cautious. This knight is pesky. I feel like I'm going to have to get rid of this knight pretty soon. So I am tempted to just take it immediately. So bishop takes e5, d takes e5. Let's say knight d7. Castle's queenside. Queen e7, getting out of a pin and threatening knight takes e5. f4, something along those lines. Knight c5. Okay, I'm getting some pressure there. That's something. Bishop takes c5, queen takes c5, f5. Maybe. I'm going to look at knight fd5 one more time. Knight fd5, knight takes d5, knight takes d5, bishop takes d5, e takes d5. Bishop takes h6. That looks like an important line. Because I can't take, because then he goes knight c6 check, and he wins my queen. So on bishop takes h6, I'd probably have to castle short. And then say bishop back to e3. Do I have enough compensation? Maybe something like c5? And it's only one pawn. I think I have some comp there. Yeah, let's give that line a shot. Took me a while to figure this out, but I think knight fd5 is a reasonable move. I had a bad feeling about bishop takes e5. I wanted to play that move just to clarify the situation, but on the whole, it appears to me that this move is stronger. So we're going to go with it. So a crucial line is if white takes on d5 twice. And maybe I could take with a pawn here now that I look at this. Given that c3 is going to be met by knight d3 check. But I was thinking knight takes d5 all along, so I think I'm going to stick with this move. Yeah, let's do that. So if he takes, there is bishop takes h6, but I'm just going to castle against that move. Note that knight c6 is not working because I can take and then after bishop g5 check trying to win my queen, I have bishop e7. So we can refute that move. Yeah, he's going to go for it. So now I think castles is good. Or at least this is what I want to do. Yeah, because if take, knight c6 check is going to win the queen. Just making sure there's nothing else I want to do here. I think he's going to drop the bishop back to e3, and then I was thinking c5. And try to play for an attack. Ooh, he's going to go there. But that leads to problems down the file, because now I can play f6 for one thing. What are you going to do about f6? f6, knight d3. Bishop takes d3. He actually has queen e6 there. Now then I can just move my king. Bishop takes d6, rook e8. No, I think this is blundering a piece. f6. Yeah. What's your counter argument to this? Knight d3. Bishop takes d3. If he recaptures, then I just win the bishop. So on bishop takes d3, I think queen check is forced. But then just king h8, let's say. Bishop takes d6, rook e8. And we're winning his queen. So that was a rather large miss by white. Yeah, bishop e3 was necessary instead. And then I was thinking about c5 and a couple other moves, but probably c5. This is what can happen when you're used to just blitzing out moves, because he played the first 17 moves very quickly. Okay, now he's playing knight f3. Again, I think just take this, take the free bishop. But yeah, he was just firing out the opening moves. And then suddenly he had a position that was interesting and just threw it away with bishop f4. That's all there is to it. All right, rook e8 looks simple, just attacking the queen. Yeah, let's just get on the file with tempo. Force queen d1. He has one pawn for the piece. Not enough. Probably queen d7 next. I don't think I have to do anything fancy. Yeah, he just resigned. Okay, so let's go back and look at this relatively short game. So we had a Scandinavian. And I played the queen d8 line quite a bit recently. I feel pretty comfortable with it, so I gave it a shot. Now after a6, most people play knight f3 directly, but that does allow the line b5, bishop b3, c5, which I had twice at the tournament in Dallas, the UT Dallas Fall FIDE Open, against Samuel Sevion in round 1, which was a draw, and then against Arthur Callagher in round 3, which I won. And the point is that if white takes, then you can trade on d1, and regardless of how they take back, you're going to play e6, and black will regain the pawn. Black's going to take c5 soon. If bishop e3 trying to defend, black has a nice choice. They can play knight e4, knight fd7, or even just bishop b7 and wait for a moment before going after this pawn with knight bd7, most likely. That pawn is not running away anywhere. So for this line, the realization that a6 is completely playable has been a huge boost to the popularity of the Queen d8 Scandinavian. And it seems weird that black can get away with playing a6 on move 5 in a line where you lose 2 tempos with your queen, playing queen takes d5 and then queen back to d8. But theory seems to indicate that black is doing all right in this line. That said, I probably should look at a4 a bit closer, because the way the game played out was not anything super special, but I would have liked to spend a little bit less time. Like, it would be nice to just know what the best move is here. I know that a4 is not considered best because of this knight c6 move, but I got to get my move orders down a little bit better after this. Like here I was debating between bishop f5 or bishop g4. I think I rejected bishop g4 because I just thought bishop e3 might be a decent counter. Maybe it's okay for black. Yeah, black can just play e6. The computer thinks it's fine. But I suspect the bishop out on f5 is also good too. And here white played bishop e3. Now, I almost played knight b4 right away, but I got scared off by this move, rightly or wrongly. I just didn't want to allow knight e5 directly. This is kind of a cute idea.
Check.
Point being that if I go after c2, I run into checkmate.
Checkmate.
Bishop takes f7 mate. Knight controls the flight square. So I started with e6, and if he were to play this move, then I think there's a couple problems potentially. I mean, knight b4 is the move that I would immediately think about, because that attacks d5 4 times, both knights and the pawn and the queen on d5, and also I'm hitting c2. The engine thinks it might be playable after knight d4, but somehow this seems a little irresponsible for white to play d5 directly. So he played h3, but I don't know. h3 seems like a thoughtless move to me. Maybe he just wanted to control g4 in preparation for knight h4. But I think his problem in this opening is he was just firing out the moves, and that cost him in about 10 more moves. So h3, I figured I had time to play knight b4, attack c2, and then play h6, because if I were to play something like this, I think he is going to play knight h4 and try to go after that light square bishop, and I'd prefer to avoid this. Note that if he did that before playing h3, though, if this, I would have bishop g4 in reply, which is nice. So h3, knight b4, bishop b3, h6. Yeah, the engine thinks the position is roughly equal. And then he lashed out with g4. I played bishop h7. I didn't want to play bishop g6, because then knight e5 would come with an attack on the bishop. And I do not want to have to take with my f-pawn should white capture, because e6 would be loose. So I'd have to waste time playing bishop h7 again. Not ideal. So that's why I played bishop h7 directly. He went knight e5. I played bishop d6. And now queen e2. Okay, so here I had a bit of a think. I probably thought for 4 or 5 minutes on this move. Yeah, I had 12 minutes, and I went down to 8:30 after my next move. Because I think this position's important. With queen e2, he's signaling that he wants to castle queenside, and I need to have my game plan at the ready. So there were a lot of moves to consider. I thought about taking on e5. I thought about castling. I thought about knight fd5, which is what I played. The computer says c6, just kind of fortifying the position. Maybe that makes it easier for me to use the d5 square. I didn't like castling because I thought g5 was just too easy to play for white. Pawn takes, bishop takes. He's got a ready-made pin. He's got a g-file that could be used if he plays rook g1. He's going to castle. It looks like white's ahead of me in the attacking department. Also, bishop takes e5 I rejected because I thought that even though my position looks solid here, it seems too easy for white to play, once again. Like queen e7, f4. Yeah, he is potentially overextended, but I think if white is able to consolidate, he's going to be better for sure. He's got all this space on the king side and the center, and I don't have much to show. I have some pressure on c2, but it's easily taken care of for white. He's got that covered. So knight ft5 I think is okay. I think knight ft5 is right up there with c6, unless it turns out my pawn sacrifice is unsound. Let's take a look. So knight takes d5. I took with the knight. I mentioned that pawn takes is also interesting because d5 is defended by the knight, and he can't play c3. Actually, I guess he could for... I was thinking I could play knight d3, but he can just take here. If c3 here, though, I could take and then try to get the knight in. But at any rate, knight takes d5 is consistent with what I'm going for. And now the engine thinks bishop d2 is best, just dropping the bishop back. But he went for this line. Take, take, bishop takes. This is the greedy line. Yeah, and it says castles is good. So again, the idea of this move is that if I take the bishop, then he gets to play check. Discovery on the king and attack on the queen. So he'll win the queen. But after castling, he has to move the bishop now because I am threatening to take it. Yeah, and bishop e3 has to be played. Okay, yep, and c5. The engine is kind of validating what I felt about this. I felt that despite being down a pawn, white is underdeveloped. I have the two bishops. With c5, I'm threatening some stuff like taking and then rook e8 and maybe f6 and trying to exploit my pressure down the e-file. So it didn't look simple for white to defend. And if you're going to lose a pawn in the opening, it's often best if it's the rook pawn that you're pitching, because that's one of the least valuable pawns at the outset of the game. So I don't really mind giving the h6 pawn if it translates to an initiative for me. So yeah, he blundered with bishop f4, but it looks like even in the case of bishop e3, because he needs to cover the e-file. I mean, if it doesn't cover the e-file, like say he plays like bishop d2, I think this is too easy for black. I can play f6 followed by rook e8. Or maybe rook e8 first is best. That's probably most accurate. Yeah, and he's going to have to scramble to play bishop e3 and get back on the file. And again, I can play c5. This is even better. So had bishop e3 been played, I think, yeah, c5 and what would be best for white. If c3, I thought taking would be good. The idea of take and maybe even checking him on b4. Or, yeah, rook c8, as the computer is showing, is also good. Trying to get the rook into c2. The engine likes black's attacking chances. What if castles? Rook c2, all the same. Let's say queen f3. Bishop e4, queen g3, f6. Okay, yeah, here again, looks like white's losing material. But on bishop f4, f6 is too easy. And he just played knight f3 and gave the bishop. But had knight d3 been played, I think I can kind of take my pick of good options. I was looking at mainly bishop takes d3, because if he takes back, then we win f4. So if
Check.
queen e6 check, we can just move our king. And yeah, if he takes, again, we can take here or even play rook e8. And if he takes here, also rook e8, pinning him and winning lots of material. All right, so this is a short game, but I am happy with the way I played this one. I think in the couple of tough decisions I had to make, like especially right here, deciding what to play, I think I came up with a decent move in knight fd5, and it paid off because he got greedy and it quickly backfired and he blundered. But white really should have slowed down. I mean, he played the opening way too fast. You can't play a move like bishop takes h6 followed by immediately bishop f4 in the amount of time that they took. You got to think that through. The position's pretty sharp, and you're going to some lengths to win a pawn. You're neglecting your development, and you're keeping your king in the center. So if I'm white, I would want to spend a lot more time to make sure that's safe to do so. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll be back again soon with another one. Talk to you guys later.